Alrighty, welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at one more Auteur comparison. Figured I ought to compare it to the last Summit Fi headphone I've got lying around here. So on the left we've got the ZMF Auteur, the wondrous, the glamorous, the beautiful. Known for its unique wooden design and hand assembly, it's quickly becoming popular for everything I just mentioned, and for sounding godly, might I add. On the right we've got the HiFiMAN Aryas. This is their, I can't believe I'm saying this, entry level into Summit Fi headphone with its distinct egg-shaped cups and ultra-thin planar drivers. If you see some of my previous content on these, you'll know I've got a love-hate relationship with them. They're amazing at some things, but really lack at others. And by the way, these are the Revision 2.0, not the Stealth Magnet Revision, or Revision 3.0, I guess you can call it. They're not the Revision 1.0 either. The 1.0 has a different type of mesh that allows you to see the driver a little more clearly. Now you can see the driver here just because I'm holding it under the light, but that is not the case in person. It's tougher to see them unless you've got them directly under a bright light like this one. And by the way, I just read up on the new ZMF Atrium and wow, those look gorgeous. I mean, apparently I now hold the ZMF Auteur Classic in my hands. We'll see if I can review those one day. We will see. So before we begin, once again, don't forget to sub to the channel. We've got audio stuff, gaming, and memes. If any of these appeal to you, this is the place for you. Thanks for checking us out. Now with that out of the way, which one of these will reign supreme? Let's jump right in. Let's begin with the contents. So I'm going to say the Auteur win this category. One thing you have to realize is that the Auteur are hand-assembled and packaged on a personal level. ZMF will ask you what you want with your headphones, and you can modify the contents to your convenience or preference. On the other hand, the Aryas are mass-produced and shipped from large retail stores. So what you see is what you get. So with the Auteurs, you'll get the headphones themselves, a stock-braided cable, the Auteur pads, a choice of secondary pads, your ZMF owner's card, a lifetime driver warranty with ZMF themselves, and a seahorse case to ship the headphones in. The Aryas on the flip side come in a cardboard box with nothing but the headphones, a short stock 4th-inch cable, the owner's manual, and the warranty card. Next, let's approach the build quality. So I'll start off by saying that I've had both of these for over a year now, and I've been using them on and off here and there. Of course, not as often as my HT600s, but you get the point. In that period of time, neither of these ever gave me a reason to think that they might give out on me anytime soon. That said, the ZMFs feel much more sturdily built, and I have way more confidence in these than the Aryas. While both headphones have their mix of metal and plastic, and, well, wood on the ZMF cups, the Auteurs have more metal and wooden parts than plastic. I'd say the Aryas are justified in having plastic where they do, which would be pretty much the cups themselves and the bungee adjustment, this right here, this mechanism. However, the plastic itself does feel a bit cheap for a headphone of this price. Now, the cable connectors on the Auteurs are dual 3-pin XLR with a push-button mechanism to unlock them, while the Aryas feature a dual 3.5mm solution. Again, I don't feel bad about the connectors, but it's true that something like dual XLR would last you longer than 3.5mm. It's a fact. Now let's get to the comfort aspect here. This one is a bit subjective, but here's my answer. I think the Aryas are much more comfortable than the Auteurs, and here's why. So it's true, both of these are mid to heavy cans with very thick pads and a bungee strap mechanism. So what makes them so different? Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. It's the clamp force. Even though they're both a suspension strap type of design, the Aryas are built with the intent of gripping onto your head, while the Auteurs are built to rest on your head. So of course, it depends on what you prefer. For me though, it feels really weird that the Auteurs will just fall off your head if you tilt it in the slightest direction. The Aryas though, you'll put those on and I mean, those are gonna stay. They have a strong clamp force, but the thickness of the pads counters the clamp force so that only the security and grippiness, the security remain, getting rid of most of the pressure. Yep, while I can keep the Aryas on for at least a good hour without having to, just shift them a little, I can't keep the Auteurs for longer than 45 minutes before I just have to take them off entirely. So let's discuss amplification on these. On the THX AAA 789, I run the Auteurs at 11 on gain 2 and single-ended, while running them at 1030 on gain 1 in balanced. As for the Aryas, I run them at 130 on gain 2 or 11 on gain 3 in single-ended, while running them at 1030 on gain 1 or 1 on gain 1 in balanced. Now let us approach the sound portion, the reason you're all here. So as usual, the following impressions were taken at completely stock frequencies. Any use of EQ will be left until the notes and observations portion of the review. Until then, enjoy the show. Bass. Again, these impressions are in stock form, no EQ whatsoever. So in stock form, the Arya's drivers produce more mid-bass and sub-bass than the Auteurs do. A tad more mid-bass, but much more sub-bass. I'll give you an example. Zealots of Stockholm by Childish Gambino. At the 3:05-minute mark, I know the bass drop isn't a full dip into 1 Hz or anything, but the cutoff point is much more present and audible on the Aryas than on the Auteurs. And the bass note that began at the 1:35-minute mark is also much fuller and present. However, the note's timbre is more natural and warmer on the Auteurs. Bass guitars have a nicer, scruffy texture on the Aryas, but have a warmer and smoother texture on the Auteurs. And while reproduction is more linear on the Aryas, I personally prefer the lushness of the Auteurs here. We see this further with electronic bass notes and hip-hop tracks such as Purple Lamborghini by Rick Ross and Skrillex. The low end on the Auteurs is that of a dynamic driver, slightly more forward mid-bass than on the Aryas, but experiences that inevitable roll-off as it goes into the sub-bass, though it does it well. However, the Aryas simply have the more linear decay into the sub-bass, inching out the Auteurs at that very last portion of the frequency response. So let's discuss mids now. Right off the bat, you can tell that the Auteurs are mid-forward cans, while the Aryas are mid-recessed, or in other words, V-shaped. Female vocals have that same type of feeling with the Auteurs, where the vocals stand 1 or 2 feet in front of every instrument and sound clear but not harsh. The Aryas also present female vocals clearly, but they clearly lie in between the rest of the instruments and even behind some as well. And unfortunately, they're a tad shrill too. Now, cellos on the Auteurs have a great rich timbre to them and are quite articulate as well. The Aryas, however, sacrifice a bit of that natural timbre for additional clarity and detail to every pluck and bow. I gotta stop slapping these. These have like an ultra thin driver on them. Like, come on. Anyways, the overall timbre of instruments between the two is that of a dynamic versus a planar. The dynamic offers the softer, more natural sounding presentation that's more balanced, while the planar offers the sharper, more crisp and metallic sound that gives it a little extra pep and vibrance. Treble. Just as you'd expect from a HiFiMAN planar, the treble in the Aryas has that metallic timbre to it that makes treble neutral to light tracks sound forward and vibrant, but makes treble heavy tracks a tad too powerful. Just a little tough to handle. Now by comparison, the Auteurs have a much smoother treble with a closer to natural timbre to them. You hear this in the sibilance region as well. The Aryas definitely present more sibilance than the Auteurs. When it comes to higher percussion like cymbals and hi-hats, the Aryas definitely bring those more forward than the Auteurs do. While I'd say the Aryas are closer to what a live modern performance might be like, if you visit a concert, albeit a small one, but they've got the speakers, they got their equipment, they mix it here and there.
What's up? What's up? What the fuck's up, Denny's?
I prefer the slightly darker, by comparison, response of the Auteurs. I feel the Aryas try to bring the sound forward to try and get you to pay attention to the detail when it's really not that necessary. I can hear the details in the Auteurs as well without resorting to elevated treble, really. Now Soundstage and Imaging. The Aryas are better at separation than the Auteurs. They are. Even if they have the same capabilities, the Arya's wider and taller soundstage allow it to space things out a bit more effectively. Imaging, on the other hand, I must give to the Auteurs. While both are excellent at imaging, the Auteurs are one step ahead of the Aryas. And I'll give you an example here. Hotel California by the Eagles. Right at the end of the track at around 6:02, you can hear the drums go from middle right to lower left to lower right, then to upper left. The difference, though, is that the Aryas give you a clean and snappy movement, while the Auteurs give you something quite similar, but with a trail left behind. So let me try to explain this as best I can. So the Auteurs, make them go like doom, 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 doom. Make them go from here, 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 here. Just snappy. Very snappy, very quick. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. The Auteurs do the same thing, and they're snappy as well, but you can hear the sound being shifted from here to here to here to here. Like you can hear the movements tracking from left to right as it is shifting towards one direction and then the other. Now let's get to some notes and observations here. While I no longer use Equalizer APO because I'm just too damn lazy to reinstall it after every Windows update, literally every Windows update, every couple of weeks I had to reinstall the thing, but I digress. I still have my settings that I used on both of these. The Aryas required the most EQ for me. They're a bit tough to use for music without it. As you can see, I pretty much bring the mids forward a bit to fill in the gap while bringing down the treble just a tad so that it's not as intense. Like I said, while it can be just a minor quirk about the Aryas in most tracks, just a quirk that you can enjoy, it's like, okay, it's got a little extra, big deal. It can really get to you in those more treble forward tracks. As for the Auteurs, I barely even used EQ for these since I've personally found them very enjoyable without it, but it doesn't hurt to do some minor tweaks here and there. So I mostly just raise the mids here and there to bring a bit of life to them. Barely anything, just about a decibel or so. Then I brought that peakiness around 10K down a tad to reduce some of those peaks in the highs. Again though, not a requirement. So to conclude, here's the lowdown. Both of these are Summit Fi legends that are still relatively new to the market, but have already amassed quite a following for each. Now, which one of these takes the cake for me? Objectively, the Auteurs do. And here's why. Their more neutral frequency response helps you listen to them for longer periods of time. Their build is very unique and absolutely stunning. Their build quality feels more reliable, and above all, I genuinely feel they're one of the best headphones I have ever heard. Enjoyable, detailed, fun, and neutral-ish. Somewhat neutral. But it kills me. It really, really kills me that I can't stand them on my head. And so you'll probably find me wearing the Aryas just a tad more often than the Auteurs for that one reason alone. I can wear the Aryas for hours, and I have for certain games or, listening sessions, so on and so forth. And if I modify the volume on certain tracks that are treble heavy and a little intense, they're not that harsh on the ears. Also, don't forget, these still have an amazing soundstage and killer bass reproduction. So, in the end, I'd rather opt for the Auteurs, but I probably won't until Zach and the team of ZMF redesign them to feel more comfortable. Till that happens, I'll probably just cycle, in between some of my other headphones. So that's going to do it for this week's video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this really helped you out, especially those of you in the future that are considering the ZMF Atrium and are like, hey, maybe the Auteurs aren't such a bad deal. Maybe they're more price to performance than the Atriums. Well, there you have it. Hope that helps. Anyways, thank you for watching. That's going to do it for me, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, ciao.